Namaste and welcome to another episode of Geopolitics with Alok Bansal. Today we will be talking about the Balochistan insurgency, the conflict, the reasons of the conflict, what happened in 1947 and much more. Namaste Alok ji, thank you for joining us again. Alok ji, you have written a phenomenal book on the crisis and insurgency in Balochistan. Please take our audience in the root cause of this insurgency and what is the history of this crisis in Balochistan.
See, firstly, we need to understand that when India and Pakistan partition took place, those places where Muslim League had a government came to constitute Pakistan. Unfortunately, Balochistan under the British had no province. There was a small cantonment like Quetta cantonment and a small part which was called British Balochistan. Then there were tribal areas which were notionally under the British but had complete autonomy of Bugti tribes and Mari tribe. And then there was a major princely state called State of Kalat, which was a 19-gun salute state. And it had three vassals, Kharan, Makaran and Lasbela. Now this was the situation that existed when Britishers left India. Now the state of Kalat gave a memorandum to the British saying that their status was similar to that of Nepal. Their treaty relations were not with New Delhi but with Whitehall. So after the British left, they also should become completely independent like Nepal. Then when eventually British did not accept it and when the two countries came into being, Muslim League sent a proposal that they should accede to Pakistan. So when the proposal went to the state of Kalat, it had a bicameral legislature. And a party called Kalat State National Party was ruling over there. And when the proposal went, the leader of that party was Mr. Gosbaks Bejenjo. And he said that if just because we are Muslims, we are required to join Pakistan, then even Iran and Afghanistan must be asked to join them. The fact is we have a separate identity, a separate culture like them. So we need to be independent. And he went on to say that they say that we cannot survive without Pakistan, but the fact is we have the minerals, we have the coast. Can Pakistan survive without us? And they unanimously rejected the proposal to merge to Pakistan. Of course, subsequently Pakistan mobilized troops in March. So the state of Kalat had actually become independent from 15th August 1947 till March 1948. But what Pakistan Muslim League did was that the vassals of Kalat, that is Kharan, Makaran and Lasbela, were converted into full-fledged states and they were made to accede to Pakistan. Now once they acceded to Pakistan, Kalat became a landlocked state. And then they mobilized troops in March 1948 and forced the ruler of Kalat, the Khan of Kalat, to sign an instrument of accession. And at that point of time, his brother Prince Karim led the first rebellion against Pakistan. Since then, rebellions against Pakistan have continued from time to time. So this is as far as historical entity of Baloch nationalist movement, Baloch freedom movement is concerned. We need to understand that Balochistan has been a fairly secular society. The Baloch never identified themselves with Pakistan movement. The Pakistan movement was not very strong in Balochistan. And even British Balochistan's merger with Pakistan was done surreptitiously. Since there was no province in Balochistan, the Quetta municipality and select people were allowed to vote. And that also meeting took place surreptitiously without giving them adequate notice when most of the members were not present, and then they voted in favor of Pakistan. So this whole way by which Balochistan was amalgamated into Pakistan was actually extremely flawed, and that has led to a feeling amongst Baloch that they are being discriminated against. Now, subsequently there have been various causes which have aggravated this sense of alienation. The first is Baloch representation in higher echelons of power is virtually zero. There are hardly any senior officials, ambassadors, generals from Balochistan. The second is that the Balochi language is not being promoted. So they are trying to marginalize Baloch culture and Baloch linguistic identity by promoting Urdu in this particular area. Then the poverty. The Balochistan is the most impoverished region of Pakistan despite having all the mineral resources. So much so that gas which was found in Balochistan was supplied to rest of Pakistan much before it came to Quetta, which was the capital of Balochistan. So there was a time when rest of the Pakistan was getting gas being produced from Balochistan, but Quetta was not going. So there is an economic exploitation. So there are numerous reasons why these people feel that they are being exploited. They look at Pakistani administration as a colonial administration rather than they being a part and parcel of it.
So the Pakistan administration has ever done anything for their demands?
See, Pakistan has from time to time come out with white papers and Balochistan packages, but these are actually just tokenism. They have tried to do something, but they have really not done anything worthwhile for them. If you see today also, you have a government in Balochistan. It's actually doesn't represent the people of Balochistan. As you know, these elections in Pakistan were as it is rigged completely, but they were completely rigged in Balochistan. In fact, in Balochistan, most of the times the parties which are known as king's parties come to power. Like Balochistan Awami Party, the Pakistan's caretaker prime minister was from this political party. This is nothing but a creation of the military establishment. And these parties, the candidates of these parties hardly get 1,000, 2,000 votes from each constituency and still get elected. Firstly, there's rigging, then there is of course boycott of these elections by the Baloch because they don't feel that these elections change them in any way. So they feel that the provincial government or the central government does not represent them, and that actually aggravates their sense of alienation.
Alok ji, I would like to go back to that pre-colonial era again, and would like to ask you that what all happened in those 227 days when Balochistan had their independence. How Muhammad Ali Jinnah betrayed the Khan of Kalat, as you said.
See, the problem is Muhammad Ali Jinnah was the legal advisor of Khan of Kalat. So when Khan of Kalat gave a memorandum to cabinet mission, it was through him. And as I said, on 15th August when Kalat became an independent state, they knew at that point of time that Pakistan did not have the wherewithal to force them because that time other princely states were free. So what they did was that the first, as I said, they managed to convince Kharan, Makaran and Las Bela to merge with Pakistan. Now if you see the three princely states which were vassals of Khan of Kalat, they were all on the southern fringes. So once they acceded to Pakistan, Kalat became a landlocked, and then they mobilized the armed forces. Once armed forces went there, Khan had no other option because it was literally a gun was pointed at him. And that is when his brother Prince Karim led the first rebellion. They fought against the Pakistan. They were crushed and they crossed over to Afghanistan. And even earlier, as I said, when this area became part of Pakistan, in Quetta municipality, etc., they had the local representation was low, and even then the whole thing was manipulated in a way that the people vote for Pakistan. All the members were not present. They called a meeting in such a way that everybody could not be present, and very few members out of the total lot were present, and they voted for Pakistan.
Did Khan of Kalat ask for help from India also?
I have not really found any document to say that Khan of Kalat actually asked for help from India, and you need to understand that by that time, March 1948, India was in no position to help Kalat because Kalat had become already a landlocked state. The coast was already with Pakistan. Pakistan was already having a coast, and in March 1948, we were having a full-fledged war in Jammu and Kashmir. Our troops were completely committed there, and we were trying to push out. So firstly, I haven't found any documentary evidence which says that Khan of Kalat asked for help from India. Secondly, India's ability to help at that stage was severely limited. As you know, we were having operations in Hyderabad, we had to start operations, we were having in Kashmir, we were having a problem. So, Indian army was still in the process of getting reorganized, and we were in no position to send an expeditionary force to Kalat, which was a landlocked state. Because if you had to go to Kalat, you had to send troops by air, and you didn't have that sort of, whatever air effort was available to us was being utilized in Kashmir to build up forces to expel the infiltrators there.
Okay, so I'll go back to the period of insurgency again. In 2005, Akbar Bukti came out as a leader who again ignited this war against Pakistan. Tell us about that whole period and how he was assassinated ultimately.
See, we need to understand that after 1948, when the first insurgency started, the second insurgency started in 1958. There was a 90-year-old man called Nawab Noroz Khan who led the insurgency. He was actually tricked by Pakistan army into coming down from the hills, telling that they will negotiate with him. But when he came down, his sons were killed and he was imprisoned. He died in prison. And this saga has further accentuated the Baloch alienation, that how Pakistanis cannot be relied. They make false promises. They had actually sworn on Holy Quran that we want to discuss with you. You please come down from the hills and we'll discuss it. And then they killed. Then again there was an insurgency in the 60s, led by Sher Muhammad Mari and others, which was a quasi-leftist insurgency that was again crushed. The last insurgency was in 70s, when after the 1970 elections, which led to liberation of Bangladesh, Balochistan had a government led by the National Awami Party and in coalition with another religious political party, JUI. It was led by Ataullah Mengal, who was the chief minister. And when that government was sacked by Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, there was an insurgency in 73. That also lasted for about 5-6 years. At that point of time, Iranian Air Force supported Pakistani Air Force to crush Baloch insurgency, because that time Shah of Iran was there. And as you know, Baloch inhabit not only Pakistan but also parts of Iran as well as Afghanistan. So a substantive Baloch area is in Iran also. So a sovereign Balochistan also threatens Iran along with Pakistan. So they were also a little concerned. The current round of insurgency actually started around 2004. Started when mega projects were talked of, Gwadar etc. was being built and they were done. 2005 in January, the first major upsurge was in Sui, when a lady doctor, Shazia, was allegedly raped by an army captain, and the Baloch actually attacked the PPL complex. In 3 days they fired 60,000 rounds plus and captured 9 gates out of 27, I think, of the PPL complex. This was again followed by another attack in Dera Bukti, where Nawab Bukti was the leader, and he was the leader of the Bukti tribe. Incidentally, in the previous round of insurgency in 70s, he was the governor actually of Balochistan. So he has been a member, he had been a cabinet minister, so his alienation was very, very important. When he got alienated from Pakistani government, the Bukti tribe, which is the largest tribe in Balochistan, actually broke away. So in March 2005, they tried to fire shells at Nawab Bukti's residence. Unfortunately, one of the shells fell in a Gurudwara nearby, where Hindus and Sikhs had taken shelter, because they used to live next to Nawab Bukti's residence, and 45 of them died in that particular operation. 60 people died. And then Nawab Bukti moved out of Dera Bukti palace and went to the hills. And then eventually in August, he died. He was killed actually. How he killed is still shrouded in mystery. Initially they said some planes were going and they came under attack from the ground, so they dropped bombs and they were in caves which caved and he died. Then subsequently they said that they wanted to negotiate. Some people came and they blew themselves up. But the fact is that Nawab Bukti's body was never handed over to his family members. His body was brought in a sealed casket and buried, with just only the cleric performing last rite allowed to see his face, and it was buried. That Nawab Bukti's elimination further accentuated the alienation within Balochistan.
Alokji, tell us about the relationship of Balochistan and Pakistani army and how they've been creating havoc in that area.
See, now what has happened is you need to understand that Balochistan is a dry, parched land. As a result, Baloch insurgents or nationalists know that Pakistani army cannot live off the land. So the Baloch aim is to break all communication links with Pakistan. So they generally target road bridges, railway lines, telegraph lines, power pylons, gas pipelines, oil pipelines. These are generally targeted. And they generally don't go for killings. Their attack is more intended towards attacking the infrastructure which connects Balochistan to Pakistan. Pakistan army, since they cannot, Balochistan, as you know, is a very vast range. Balochistan in Pakistan comprises almost 43% of landmass, but it is inhabited by less than 5% of population. So what happens is Pakistan army knows that it's a dry, parched land. So they have invariably indulged in aerial bombing and artillery firing, which leads to huge collateral damage. Lot of innocent people have been killed. Lot of people have died. Anybody who is supportive of the Baloch cause have been picked up and they disappear. They are called disappeared people. Pakistan Supreme Court had once taken a suo motu notice of it when Justice Chaudhary was sacked, who was the Chief Justice, for taking this notice. And again now, disappeared people, as they call disappearing persons, their cases have been taken by judiciary time and again. There have been occasions when bodies have been discovered, unknown graves, unmarked graves have been discovered where mutilated bodies showing clear-cut signs of torture have been found of these people who have been missing. The people who are missing for years at a stretch, their family members are anguished, they don't know how to do, what to do. So much so that Mama Kadir Baloch, who is a 70 plus years old banker, actually took women and children and moved all over Balochistan's districts, and finally from Quetta to Karachi and Karachi to Islamabad to present the photos of all missing persons to the United Nations. But nothing has been done. So there has been an extremely exploitative regime that exists in Balochistan, and consequently the alienation of Baloch with Pakistan is more or less complete. There is hardly any educational institute in Balochistan where either Pakistani flag flies or Pakistani national anthem is sung.
So all these human rights organizations, why are they mum on these issues?
See, if you see, human rights organizations have been raising issues. If you see HRCP's reports, they have said that they have used incendiary bombs in Balochistan, which are banned under Geneva Convention, like napalm, etc. These bombs are banned, but they have been used. There are also reports which suggest of use of chemical warfare against Baloch. Now, these have been raised. But what happens is in Pakistan, any issue dealing with Balochistan is generally suppressed. In fact, newspapers have been told that the Baloch issue should not figure on the front page. They could at best be covered in a small column in the inner pages. Once there was a situation when Dawn was pressurized into doing so, and Dawn did not want to do so. So for 2 to 3 weeks, Pakistani agencies or the government agencies did not give any advertisement to Dawn. And Dawn had to come up with a front page advertisement saying that we are being pressurized into following government line, and that's why they are not giving us advertisement, which is not a desirable thing. So they made an issue like this, but nothing happened. Eventually Dawn also had to fall in line. So when it comes to Balochistan, Pakistan's security establishment is extremely conscious and does not allow them any liberty to either talk about what's happening in Balochistan or to take up Baloch cause.
Are there any non-Baloch leaders which have talked in the past about this whole thing?
See, in the last insurgency,
some mainstream leaders.
See, like in 70s, when the Baloch insurgency was there was a large number of Punjabi leftist leaders who had joined Baloch movement. There was one Dilip Das or Johnny Das. He was an Air Commodore Das, Balwant Das's son. He disappeared. But there were others also like Najam Sethi, Tariq Fateh. All these people were with the Baloch in 70s. But when the insurgency was crushed, they moved out. From time to time, some leaders do raise these issues of Baloch, but as I said, Balochistan is one issue on which Pakistan's establishment is very, very sensitive, and the military deals with people raising Balochistan issue very, very harshly, and that we saw when Chief Justice of Pakistan Supreme Court Justice Chaudhary was sacked from his position for raising the issue of disappearing persons.
Okay, coming back to the insurgency part, but the violence that is happening today, what is the role Afghanistan is playing and Taliban is playing in this insurgency?
See, generally, Baloch have not had very good relations with religious political parties, because Baloch nationalists are left-leaning secularists. They are not religiously minded, and as a result, to counter Baloch nationalist movement, the Pakistani authorities used to encourage religious political parties to counter Baloch nationalism. They also used to aggravate the sectarian fault line in Balochistan, and as a result you found lot of anti-Shia terrorist acts taking place in Balochistan, especially in Quetta, where a large percentage of Hazara population lives, who are Shias. But what is interesting is that recently what we are finding is that there is some sort of a tactical alliance between TTP, which is Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and Baloch nationalists. And now this is a very, very unique phenomena, and consequently what we have seen in last few years is that Baloch have also started indulging in suicide bombing, which was an anathema to Baloch earlier. The Baloch were not indulging in suicide bombing or things like that. They were going in for attack where the people could die, was a different thing. But now we are seeing Baloch are also indulging in suicide bombing. So there is some amount of collusion between TTP and Baloch, and Pakistani government is accusing that Baloch activists are finding safe havens in Afghanistan.
And what is the economically financial impact of these insurgencies on Pakistan? How it impacts Pakistan financially?
See, we need to understand that Pakistan's economy is in dire strait, and Pakistan realizes that if it has to come out of the economic mess, it will have to bring those areas which have not had which are not economically developed into the mainstream. And as I said, half of Pakistan is Balochistan, which is rich in minerals but extremely sparsely populated. So they are trying to do that. There are mega projects being planned for Balochistan. You have Gwadar deep sea port, which is connected to CPAC, which is a very, very major project in which Pakistan perceives that will be changing. There is Sandak copper mines, there are Mirani Dam, there is a coastal highway. Pakistan feels that these infrastructural projects will transform Balochistan and transform Pakistan's economy. However, the Baloch feel that these projects are being run by central government, the federal government in Islamabad, without the local administration, provincial administration, or the local people having any stake. And they are also worried because a lot of federal leaders say that we'll make Gwadar into another Karachi. They feel that if Gwadar's population becomes even half that of Karachi, the Baloch will become a minority in their own land. So that marginalization also creates fears in the minds of Baloch, because they feel that if so many people come from rest of Pakistan into Balochistan, the Baloch will permanently become a minority. So there is a huge issue. So while for Pakistan it's essential that Balochistan and the mega projects here become economically viable, but for Baloch it is seen as tools of colonization. They feel that these projects could lead to the colonization of their land, and they are strictly opposed to these projects.
My last question, Alok ji. What is the perception of people living in the known Baloch provinces? How they see this whole issue?
See, as I said, most Baloch who live in Balochistan and in other parts of Pakistan and even across the border into Iran, they are most of them are for Baloch independence, and large diaspora which is outside the country is also for Baloch independence. So many of the Baloch are not happy with Pakistan. In fact, Baloch students etc. have been discriminated in Pakistan very often in educational institutions which are in other parts of Pakistan, and there have been cases when they have been taken into custody even for organizing cultural meets. So what Baloch are trying to do, they celebrate their culture very religiously. Every year they celebrate a Baloch cultural day, and where they showcase their culture so that their identity, their cultural identity is not extinguished. And this we need to understand, because who are Baloch? Baloch incidentally are not a homogeneous community. The Baloch, the people who call themselves Baloch, speak two different languages, Brahvi and Balochi. Balochi is an Indo-Iranian Aryan language, whereas Brahvi is a Dravidian language. But despite that, both the groups, though those two languages are quite different, call themselves Baloch and are unified in their fight against the Pakistani oppression. See, one thing which I want to tell you is that if you see the Baloch nationalist flag, it has three colors. That is to represent Baloch who are part of Pakistan, Iran and Afghanistan. As you know, Goldsmith Line gave almost quarter of Balochistan to Iran, and then subsequently Durand Line gave certain Baloch inhabited areas to Afghanistan. Especially in Iran, the Baloch are extremely persecuted because not only they are ethnically a minority, they are also sectarianly a minority, because most Baloch are Sunnis in Iran, whereas Iranian regime propagates Ithna Sharia or 12 Shia. So the Baloch are extremely persecuted in Iran, and in Iran there is also a Baloch outfit which was called Jundullah and which has now got a different name, which actually recently carried out a Jaish-e-Adl, I think it's called now, and that carried out an attack recently. They are being targeted, and Iranians have used very strong measures to deal with these outfits. In fact, the Iranian attack inside Pakistani territory, they claimed was in retaliation for Jaish-e-Adl. So these territories of Balochistan, which were given by the British to Iran and Afghanistan as part of different agreements which were signed. One was Goldsmith Line, which gave territory to Iran, and one was Durand Line, which gave a territory to Afghanistan, have divided the Baloch land, and that's why Baloch feel that they need to get together and all people should get together. But here again lies a problem, that because there are three countries where Baloch population lives, especially Iran and Pakistan, both are against Baloch independence, because they stand to lose a major chunk of their territory if sovereign Balochistan comes into being.
Thank you so much, Alok ji.